think it's loading. Good evening and welcome to our webinar this evening with the Data School. Honestly, I'm just so pleased to have talked to the Data School and find out exactly what they're doing and how they're encouraging people to basically work with them. And it is working with them, isn't it, Luke? It's not just a case of you're just going to train people up in something. You're actually creating jobs for people. Can you tell us a little bit about that before we begin?
Absolutely. So Stephanie will go into a little bit more detail shortly, but the Data School is the trainee consulting program from the Information Lab. And the Information Lab is a data analytics consultancy. We've got presence across 7 different countries in Europe. We also got a Data School in New York as well, and through a partner in 3 locations in Australia as well. And it's really our intention to to launch people onto careers in data. There's definitely not the supply currently to go with the demand for people with these skills, and a lot of companies are expanding their data analytics capabilities very rapidly. So coupled with us all being passionate about data literacy in general as well, it's all worked pretty well. But I'll let Stephanie go into a little bit more detail.
Yeah. It was really exciting to sort of hear and speak to you both the other day about this and just sort of see that kind of very natural journey for teachers that enjoy using data and that, potentially they can move in this direction and create a real career from it. So from our point of view, it's fantastic. And the fact that you're going to go through Tableau live today, and I'm hoping everyone's downloaded it. And I know Luke will put the link in the chat as well, just in case you haven't had time or you've forgotten or it's on a different device. He'll put the link in the chat and you can download Tableau so you can really do a sort of hands-on webinar rather than just sort of sit back and listen like most webinars are. So yeah, really pleased to be working with the Data School. I'm really pleased that so many of you have joined us this evening. Stephanie, will you like to go first and tell us a bit about the Data School?
Absolutely. Thank you, Katie. I'm just going to start by sharing my screen very quickly. Just bear with me 1 second. Okay, so hopefully you can all see that okay. But firstly, thank you all for joining us this evening for this webinar on empowering educators transitioning from the classroom into the world of data analytics consultancy. Just before we get started, I'm just going to briefly introduce myself. So my name is Stephanie and I am part of the recruitment team for the Data School in London. So prior to joining the Data School just over a year ago now, I was previously working in the education sector myself. So initially as a secondary school teacher of MFL, and then in various HR and recruitment related roles within schools. You can also see there my email address and my LinkedIn details on the screen if you did want to reach out at a later date with any questions or to find out more about the application process or the Data School more generally. Just as a side note, these slides will all be shared with you as well as a recording of the webinar after the webinar. So you'll have access to all of the information that we share today, including all of the links and contact details on these slides. So my role currently as a recruitment specialist for the Data School specifically in London. So my main responsibilities now are to support potential applicants like yourselves through our somewhat unique application process. So from submitting the initial application right through to the final interview stage. So over the course of the next kind of 20-25 minutes or so, I'm just going to briefly introduce you to the Data School and the Information Lab and tell you a little bit more about what it is that we actually do there. I'm also going to talk you through our recruitment process and tell you what it is that you actually need to do to apply to join us if it is something you're interested in doing. And I'm also going to briefly touch upon placements and why we're interested in recruiting teachers in particular. I'm then going to pass over to my colleague Amelia, who is a former teacher and current data school consultant. And then I'm going to hand back over to Luke. So Luke is our global head of recruitment and again, former consultant for the Information Lab, and he's going to give you a hands-on demo with Tableau. So first things first then, what is the Information Lab and what is the Data School? So the Information Lab was founded in 2010, and it was founded by Tom Brown, who you can see there up on the screen. And the aim of the Information Lab and why we set it up was to respond to the need for people and businesses to get the most value out of their data. And the purpose of the Information Lab, it's essentially to sell licenses, so Tableau, Alteryx, AWS and Snowflake licenses to other businesses. You might be familiar with some of those softwares already, but not to worry if not. We also have a core team of permanent employees at the Information Lab, and that consists of the people team, the sales team, and also a small number of permanent consultants who conduct shorter term placements with some of our clients. Now, in 2015, so 5 years after the Information Lab was founded, we set up the Data School. And as Luke's briefly mentioned already, so the Data School is essentially the training arm of the Information Lab. And it's where we train people to become experts in Tableau and Alteryx and expert data analytics consultants. So at the Data School, what we offer then is a 28-month fixed term contract, so just under 1.5 years. And the first 4 months of that contract, our consultants, they're all in training. And so for those first 4 months, the consultants are required to come into our offices, which are based in central London, so right by St. Paul's Cathedral, Monday to Friday, 9 till 5:30. So that's for the first 4 months. And that's where we teach you everything that you need to know about Tableau, Alteryx. We also do a little bit of Power BI and SQL as well. And we also help you to develop your soft skills as well. So for example, your presentation skills, although I'm sure you're all very familiar and confident with presenting. Once you've completed the 4-month training period, our consultants then go on to complete 4 6-month placements with some of our clients. So that's 4 placements, one after the other, each 6 months long. And we find those placements for you. And like I've already mentioned, I'm going to touch upon placements again towards the end. We have expanded internationally since we started, and we're actually now the largest specialist data visualization consultancy in Europe. And you can see there where our information labs and where our data schools are located. So with regard to the data school, we're not only in London, but also Hamburg in Germany, New York in the US, and also various locations across Australia. And although we have continued to grow over the years, our values and our spirit remain at our core. And the one thing that unites everyone within the data school is their shared passion, their shared love of data, and their desire to help organisations make better sense of their data. We've also got a really strong community within the data school, and we really have been able to foster quite a unique culture and a really collaborative and supportive learning environment. In terms of our commitment to diversity, we actually already have, so I think it's 43% of our current data school consultants identify as female, but we are still striving and working towards that 50-50 gender split. And another thing just to point out here is that we are completely agnostic to work or academic backgrounds, meaning that it doesn't really matter to us what it is that you have done in the past. You don't necessarily need to have any experience working within the field of data previously in order to apply to join us. And similarly, we are open to career changers and recent grads alike. So you can see here then just a small number of our data school consultants. And these people have come from a huge range of different backgrounds. So some of these consultants may have bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, PhDs. Some may not have been through the university system at all. They may be from arts backgrounds or more science backgrounds. So it really doesn't matter to us what it is that you've done in the past. What we're interested in is your skill set now and how that aligns with what it is that we are looking for. And you can see some of the previous professions of our consultants up there on the screen. So doctors, journalists, actors, teachers. But fundamentally, our message is that everyone is welcome and encouraged to apply to join the data school. So what is data visualization? So simply put, data visualization is the graphical representation of data and information in the form of charts, graphs, dashboards, for example. And it's through data visualization that we're able to make our data more readily available and accessible to everyone. And it enables us to be able to spot and recognize kind of outliers and trends within our data more efficiently. And just to help you understand this maybe at a simple level, so you can see here on the screen a table containing lots of numbers. If I were to ask you to tell me what the most negative number was on within this table, it's not really immediately obvious. But if I were to then apply colour to highlight those negative numbers, it's slightly more obvious. And then again, if I were to add some bars to this, it's actually quite clear and becomes quite clear that the most negative number within this table is the $43,000 for tables within the furniture category. So that's just a really simple example of the power of data visualization and how it makes it easier for us to interpret data a lot more efficiently. So one of the data visualization tools that we specialize in within the data school is Tableau, and that's something you're going to have the opportunity to get some hands-on experience with later on in this session. So like I say, Tableau is a data visualization tool, and it's where you can create charts, graphs, dashboards using your data. And you can see some examples of some dashboards up there on the screen that have been created using Tableau. So a huge range of different examples and styles there, covering a huge range again of different topics. Another tool that we specialize in within the data school is Alteryx. So whilst Tableau is a data visualization tool, Alteryx is more of a data manipulation, data prep tool. So it's where you'll prepare your data before visualizing it. And the one thing that both Alteryx and Tableau have in common is that they are incredibly user-friendly and easy to pick up, and they're accessible, which is why they've become so popular, and why we're able to teach you to use these tools and become experts in these tools in such a short period of time. They've both got, so I suppose, a drag and drop function, which makes it really, really easy for you to pick up. And you might be wondering then whether or not you need to be a coder in order to become a data analytics consultant with the data school. The short answer to that is no. So if we're not looking for people with prior experience, what are those skills that we are looking for within our applicants and within our data school consultants? So we're looking for people who are numerate. So you don't necessarily have to have a degree or qualification in stats, but you need to be comfortable working with numbers, and you need to be inquisitive and curious as well. Working within the tech industry, it's important that you are a keen learner, you're keen to continue developing your skills, and that you're happy to take autonomy for your own learning as well. The ability to take on feedback is really important. As a consultant, you're going to be getting feedback from your clients all the time. So being able to take that on board and take that well and to implement that feedback appropriately is something that we're looking for, and that's something that we look for within our application process, which I'll go on to talk about shortly. Other things that we're looking for then: strong time management, confident presenters, good communicators, problem solvers, and people from interesting backgrounds. So we're really looking for a balance between the analytical, the technical side of things, and the strong softer skills as well. And what can we offer you then as a potential employer? So some of the benefits that we offer are here on the screen. So one of the things for us to mention is that you are paid from day one of the 4-month training period, and the starting salary is £35,000 per year. So that's from day one of the training period up until the end of your second placement. Your salary then increases to £40,000 per year for your final 2 placements. So for the final year of that 28-month contract, you're also entitled to 25 days annual leave plus bank holidays, matched pension contributions, and we also provide you with all the tech that you need to fulfill your role. Personal and professional development, so that's something that we strongly support and encourage. So whilst you're in training, you'll complete certifications in Power BI, Tableau and Alteryx. And if there are any other certifications that you want to complete at any point within the 28-month contract, then we'll also support you with those as well. You'll also receive expert coaching from our team of in-house experts, many of whom have been recognised within the industry as what are known as Tableau visionaries and Alteryx aces. So individuals who have contributed to those particular communities. We've also got an extensive wellbeing program with an employee assistance program as well. And we also hold regular social events. So we have an annual Christmas trip abroad each year, which is fully funded, and we've got various different clubs within the information lab that have been set up by our data school consultants. We also have weekly yoga classes, HIIT classes, boxing classes as well. So there's lots going on to encourage you to kind of integrate and collaborate and get to know one another within the organisation. So as I've mentioned, what we offer, so it's a 28-month contract. So you might be wondering what happens at the end of those 28 months. So we typically see our consultants go one of 3 ways. So there may be the option for you to apply to join the information lab as part of our core team. So as a permanent consultant, if there is a vacancy available there. It could be that you're offered a permanent role with one of the clients whom you've been placed with whilst you've been working for the information lab. And that's something we see typically happen with around a third of our consultants. Or alternatively, you might choose to go your own way to find your own role. And that's something we support you with as much as possible throughout as well. So for example, between each placement, you have something called back to school week. So where you come back together with your cohort and develop other skills. And in your final back to school week, something we focus on then is helping you to find future employment. As you can imagine, we've been around now since 2015. We've seen hundreds of people now complete the data school program. And so we've got an ever-growing alumni network, and our alumni are now coming back to us and asking us for our supporting, helping them fill vacancies within their organizations and their teams as well. And Tableau and Alteryx skills, they are in huge demand. There are always thousands of roles and vacancies advertised on LinkedIn for individuals with Tableau skills. So you don't just need to take our word for it. I'm going to move on now just to talk a little bit about our recruitment process. So as I've already mentioned, our recruitment process is quite unique. It's quite different to other recruitment processes that you may have been through before and might be familiar with. So we recruit on a rolling basis, and we actually recruit a new cohort every other month. So we have a new cohort start with us every other month. So that's 6 cohorts a year that we have join us. Each cohort typically consists of around 8 people. We try to keep those cohorts as diverse as possible, just so that everyone then has the opportunity to learn something from one another. So I've told you that our recruitment process is quite unique. So you might be wondering what I mean by that and intrigued to know a little bit more. So although you can submit a CV when you apply to join us, it's not a requirement and it's not something that we use to inform our decisions in terms of whether or not we progress your application. We have more of an aptitude dashboard-led application process, whereby we ask applicants to familiarize themselves with Tableau, create a dashboard using Tableau based on a data set of their choice, and then submit that to us for review. So I'm going to talk you through that just in a little bit more detail, just to provide you with a little bit more clarity. So the first step would be for our applicants to join Tableau. So to create an account on Tableau Public, and like I said, all of these links will be shared with you following the webinar. You'll also need to download either Tableau Desktop or the Tableau Public app. So unless you are currently a student or enrolled with a university somewhere, and perhaps doing a master's, I'd encourage you to use the Tableau Public app. If you are a student, then Tableau, then you do get a 1-year free license for Tableau Desktop. Otherwise, Tableau Desktop is something that you would need to pay for. And this is why I recommend the Tableau Public app. Tableau Public is entirely free to use, so you don't need to pay for anything in order to familiarize yourself with Tableau and to submit an application to us. And actually, there are very few limitations and very few differences between the two. So Tableau Public app is probably the one to go for. Once you've kind of joined Tableau, download the Tableau Public app. I'd also recommend checking out the videos as starter kit on the Tableau website to help you find your feet a little bit with Tableau in the first instance. And I'd also suggest joining the community forums on Tableau. And that's a great place to look and to ask questions if you're struggling with anything in particular with regard to Tableau. Once you've done that, so once you have joined Tableau, you've downloaded Tableau Public, the next thing that we suggest is that you find some inspiration. You have a look for some ideas and see what other people have produced using Tableau. And there are a couple of places I would suggest looking for that. So the first one is our own website. So on our website, you'll be able to find all of the previously successful applications from our current data school consultants. So you'll find a page for each cohort, and on each page you'll find the dashboards that each of those individuals submitted for the purpose of their application to get into the data school. So I really, really do recommend checking out that page, and the link you can see there just on the screen. It's also not only a good way for you to see what other people have done and get a better idea of what it is that we're looking for, but it's also a really great way for you to benchmark your own application later on down the line. The other place you can look is the Tableau Public Gallery. And there are some really, really great vizzes on the Tableau Public Gallery. And they also have a Viz of the Day, which has been voted for. And there are really, really great ideas on there. You can see what other data sets and other topics people have used and covered. You can also download other people's dashboards, and you can try to recreate elements. So you can see how they've created elements within their dashboard, and you can try to recreate and reverse engineer those for yourself. Aside from looking at other people's dashboards and finding some inspiration, I'd also encourage you to practice your Tableau skills and your dashboarding skills. And Makeover Monday and Back to Viz Basics are two places where you will be able to do that. So you've downloaded Tableau, you've had a look at what other people have done using Tableau. The next step would be for you to choose your data and the data that you want to use to create your dashboard. Essentially, nothing is off limits here. The one thing we would always advise is working with a data set and choosing a data set on a topic that you are personally interested in. You're more likely to know what it is that you're looking for within your data set if you're familiar with the topic, and you're more likely to enjoy working with and putting together that dashboard if it's something that you're interested in on a personal level. So we see dashboards related to politics, sport, TV, music, all sorts of different things. You don't need to put together your own data set. You can use data sets that are freely available online. And we've shared some links with you just at the bottom of this slide where you might want to look to find those data sets. The one thing that I would advise against is using a fictional data set. And also, I would always recommend avoiding using the Tableau Superstore dataset, which is the free dataset that comes with Tableau for the purpose of your application. It's a really, really great data set for you to use when practicing your Tableau skills. But when it comes to your application, the biggest advice we can give you is to choose a data set that based on a topic that you're personally interested in. So once you've chosen your data set, you'll want to get started creating your dashboard or your Viz. Make sure you're ready to apply. Make sure you have spent enough time working on your dashboard. Make sure you're happy with what you have produced before submitting it to us. And it might be that you get some informal feedback from other people before submitting it to us. Also try to build up your own portfolio on the Tableau public gallery as well. Think of it, like I say, as your mini portfolio. We will possibly look at what else you have produced using Tableau. So it's worth keeping anything on there that you've maybe done in the past, and building that up as much as possible. So if you do partake in the Makeover Monday weekly sessions or the Back to Viz Basics, put those on there as well. It's really great for us to see that you are committed and invested in this process, and that you do have a real kind of genuine interest in using Tableau. Like I say, even if there are things that you have up on your Tableau public profile that you're not particularly happy with, leave them up there. It's great for us to see how you've made progress and how your skills have developed since you've started using Tableau. And then last but not least, when creating your dashboard, demonstrate to us that you have looked at all of the resources that we have shared with you and that are available to you online. There are loads and loads of really helpful resources out there for you to look at and make the most of. We don't expect you to be an expert, but do show us that you have made an effort. The next thing you'll want to do after you've created your Viz is publish your Viz to Tableau Public. And then what you'll need to do is share the link to that Viz with us through our website as part of your application. You'll also have the opportunity to tell us a little bit about yourself, and you can, of course, upload a CV if you want to. Your dashboard, your application will then come through to either myself or to Luke. We'll then provide you with a couple of rounds of feedback of your dashboard and see how you respond to that. And it's partly to give you the opportunity to make improvements to your dashboard and to upskill. And it's also partly for us to see how you respond to feedback, like I say, mimicking almost that consultancy process. If your Viz is ultimately to a high enough standard and you've responded to our dashboard well, our feedback well, then we'll invite you to attend a 30-minute video interview with one of our coaches. And that's just an opportunity for you to talk through your dashboard, present your dashboard to one of our coaches, and also an opportunity for them to ask you some kind of standard interview questions about yourself, just to get to know you a little bit better and assess your suitability for the role. If you're successful at the video interview stage, then we will invite you to attend a final interview with us. So for the final interview stage, we provide all final interview applicants with the same data set. We then give you 10 days to produce a new dashboard using that data set that you will then go on to present to us in person at your final interview. And again, you'll be given 5 minutes to present your dashboard, and then we'll ask you some follow-up questions to assess your suitability for the role, your understanding of the role. And of course, it's also an opportunity for you to understand if the role is right for you as well, and to come and visit us in person and to see our offices and the environment in which we work. So there are just some final tips here with regard to the final interview. And some general hints here. I'm not going to go through all of these just for the sake of time, but like I say, all of these slides will be shared with you so you can go through them within your own time. There are also a number of really useful links here to some learning resources to help you get started with your Tableau learning journey and to help you find your feet a little bit with Tableau in the first instance. So really do spend some time checking those out if you do want to find out a little bit more about Tableau. So moving on then to placements. So like I say, once you have completed the 4-month training period, you'll go on to complete 4 6-month placements with some of our clients. And you can see some examples of the clients whom we work with up there on the screen, and some really kind of household names that you'll be familiar with. But our clients cover a range of different sectors, so from finance to travel to education and sport. There really is something for everyone. And we take a number of factors into consideration when we match our clients and our consultants. So location is a big one. So the majority of our clients are London-based. They're based in and around London. So you would also need to be able to commute to London on a regular basis in order to access those clients. The other thing that we take into account is your prior experience. So if you have experience working within a particular sector and a client is looking for someone with maybe more of an understanding of the jargon within that particular sector, then we might pair you up and match you up in that respect. We look at if you have any particular interest. So if you want to, for example, work within the charity sector, then we'll see which clients we have available that would be suitable, and we'll try our best. And then the last thing that we look at is your level of experience. So if you're starting out in your very first placement, or if you're going into your 4th and final placement and maybe have a little bit more experience under your belt. So what do our consultants actually do whilst on placement? So it might be that our consultants are supplementing, so they're joining a business intelligence or reporting department. It might be that they're bringing new data visualization expertise to a project and sharing data visualization best practice. Or it might be that they are growing Tableau and self-service analytics adoption within the organization. The one thing that we won't necessarily ask you to do is run a team or a big project on your own. That is not something we would be asking you to do. So you might be wondering why it is that we are speaking to you all today and what it is that we are particularly interested in about teachers. So teachers actually, I think, have a vast amount of experience working with data already, and it might be data that you've collected through assessments, classroom observations, or other interactions with students. And generally, teachers seem to have a good understanding of the importance of data in informing their pedagogy and their future teaching practice and in making decisions. And it's that understanding of the importance and the impact that data can have on future decisions that we're looking for. As our consultants, they may be required also to contribute to kind of the wider business strategy and making decisions based on the data that they've analysed. You've also been able to acquire a huge number of transferable skills that are equally important within the data analytics industry and that we're looking for within our consultants. So like I've already mentioned, we're looking very much for a balance between those technical skills and those analytical skills and those softer skills as well. And actually, we always say that it's the technical side of things that is more difficult for us to teach. Now, one thing in particular that we are looking for within our applicants and our consultants are really strong communication skills, for example. And that's something as teachers that you will all have been able to develop. Sometimes as a data analytics consultant, you might be required to convey sometimes quite complex ideas to people at all levels within an organization and ensure that the data that you are presenting is accessible to everyone. And that's a concept that I think as teachers you'll all be familiar with. As teachers, I'm sure you're all quite used to presenting, or at least standing in front of a class and large groups of people. And that's something that we're looking for as well, is people who are confident presenters and people who are comfortable standing up in front of a crowd. There's also the expectation as a consultant that you may be required to share your knowledge and to teach your data visualization best practices and your Tableau and your Alteryx skills to the wider organization. So you can see there's a lot of overlap between those skills that you will have developed as teachers and that we're looking for within our consultants. We've also seen a number of former teachers and educational practitioners join the data school and be successful within the data school. And you can see some examples of those individuals up there on the screen. And you can see they've got a range of different experiences. So from heads of department to classroom teachers to graduate teachers. We're also interested in people who have tutoring experience and things like that. And like I say, we've seen a huge amount of success with these individuals and with people who come from teaching and educational backgrounds within the field of data analytics. And this is a good point for me then to hand over to one of those people that you can see there on the screen. So Amelia, who's just going to talk to us a little bit about her experience moving from her previous role, let's say from maths teacher, into the world of data. So Amelia, I'm going to hand over to you and just stop sharing my screen.
So hi everyone, as Stephanie introduced, I'm Amelia. So yeah, I was a secondary school maths teacher for 2 years. So I started my journey in teaching kind of accidentally. So COVID hit and I was actually in China when COVID happened, and I kind of had to evacuate really quickly, but I was still contracted out there. So that meant that I couldn't find another job. And my background was in maths. I didn't know what I wanted to do at that point. I was teaching English in China, so that was something I was already interested in, but it wasn't necessarily something that I thought about longer term until I found it really, really difficult to get a job within data or banking or finance. So when the opportunity came up to be a mentor at school, I took it and thought, yeah, foot in the door of whatever I can do, that sounds great. After my first week, I was given a class of year 7 to teach on my own, class of 30, year 7s, because someone had dropped out and they just said, look, we need a last minute teacher. Are you willing to do it? And I said, sure, I'll give it a go. And that's really what started my career in teaching, was thrown in the deep end, no training whatsoever. Here's your class of 30. The teacher's very ill, so can you cover? Now, this was all during COVID time. I'm sure all of you know the struggles of teaching during lockdowns, various lockdowns and everything. And actually, I found that I liked that bit. I liked teaching online because usually there was someone else to manage the behavior. I liked teaching online because it felt like they were listening. I know it might not always be the case, but I was getting interactions. I was doing the whiteboards online and, you know, they didn't have each other to hit or throw something or do something else, which is what I was finding in the classroom. So it wasn't that I didn't like teaching. I enjoyed it a lot. But for me personally, found everything else that goes into it really difficult. So going back to the classroom, being a form tutor, which basically to me felt like having to be a mother to 30 kids at the age of 23, and I wasn't ready for it. So I have great support for anyone that's gone through teaching, because I dealt with so many safeguarding issues and things like that just, you take it away with you. You can't switch off at the end of the day. And that's what I found really difficult. Teacher, so yes, I didn't do it for very long. So I was a teacher for 2 years and then decided it wasn't for me. And But I thought, okay, so I looked into it, and I saw the advert for the data school, and I thought, okay, I'll give it a go. I'd never even heard of Tableau before, or Alteryx, not on my radar at all. But everyone was so supportive, and I kind of reached out. I remember messaging Luke with my interviews and sending off my application and getting that feedback. So it was all it was weird going from being a teacher to almost a student again, you know, submitting things and doing something that's so completely different. So I made it in, which I was so thrilled about. Honestly, I thought this job was too good to be true. After being in teaching, where you had to battle to get, you know, a cup of tea, to go somewhere where they were like, yeah, we have a beer fridge and we have all these things, and go on holiday once a year. I was like, this isn't real. It's not real. You know, there's no way that I can go from stressing and working until midnight to something like this. And that, you know, it was kind of a culture shock to go into the data school. And especially when I got told off for working overtime, because to me, that was something that, was expected of me. You know, how else are my lessons going to be done? How else am I going to fit everything into a day when you don't really even have a lunch break because you're on duty? So to me, that was a massive shock. I also found that, as Stephanie was saying earlier, all those skills, though, that I did learn, all those things that being thrown in the deep end and managing a class and trying to teach kids that don't want to learn or aren't, you know, things that you find easy, like multiplication even, and having to explain that to kids that haven't got a clue for whatever reason, or just can't be bothered, and trying to inspire that as well. And you do find that on client placements, it's kind of similar. So you might have some tricky clients, which you can use your skills in dealing with some tricky students. And actually, you're finding that you are using all of those skills all of the time. Presenting's an obvious one, but I think it really is just all of those people skills, communicating, but also scheduling and things like that, which you might not necessarily think of, and time management, massive one. But also what I found was learning. So those 4 months of training are classroom based, and that's brilliant. You really are then going from the teacher to the student, but knowing how the brain learns and cognitive overload, good for you, like in how you learn and understanding how people learn, but also when you're then presenting to other people, knowing about those, you know, not over complicating things, not explaining things overly or doing too many points at once so that people have kind of switched off. All of those skills that you don't even think about, that you've been taught through teaching, just so useful when you get into the consulting world. I'm going to stop waffling at you now. So if you have any questions, please do pop them in the chat. We've got a couple minutes until we pass over to Luke. So we have a couple of minutes for questions if you want to pop those in.
It's nice to hear your journey. Sorry, yeah, nice to hear your journey, Amelia, and just sort of see the skills that you've taken from teaching, and then of course those skills that have been kind of honed, and the sort of full training that you've got. What do you love about your current job?
I love working in so many different industries. So I've done projects with an ice cream company, as well as trains, as well as wealth management. So all of these different industries, you just get a foot in the door, and you get to learn about how these things work and how other companies work. So my experience was just in teaching. I went from being a student to going to China to teach English to being a teacher. It was all in education. So there's some jobs out there that I'd never even heard of or considered, but actually it's given me that insight. So yeah, that was brilliant. I've seen a message from someone saying they're also in China in 2020. Yes, it was definitely an experience being out there during that. But I mean, I wouldn't be where I was today without that as well. So it's all kind of led to this amazing opportunity with the data school.
And can I ask you, because I know it's a question that I get asked an awful lot, what's your work-life balance like? I know you sort of hinted at it a bit, but what is it? When do you stop working for the data school? What sort of time?
So 5:30 is kind of the cutoff. Usually they encourage you to do 5 to 5:30 is your personal development time, which I suggest use. Develop, reach out, make a name for yourself. Write blogs, update your Tableau public, start on Power BI, learn your skills, because once you're on placement, it can be difficult sometimes to find that time. Obviously, it depends on your placement. Some of them might require you to work up until 5:30. That's absolutely fine too. But taking that time to develop your own personal skills as well, because it is a short-term contract. You're not necessarily going to be here forever. So using that time and being able to develop and sell yourself later on is brilliant. Apart from that, work-life balance, as I said before, I got told off multiple times for working over. Because I'm a perfectionist and I'm used to it and I just wanted to get it done. And they say, no, you need to have a life. And the brilliant thing about this job, you can leave work at work. You can switch off at the end of the day. You haven't got that constant nagging feeling in the back of your head that you've forgotten something or let someone down, which I had when I was a teacher, thinking, should I have done that differently? Should I have said something differently? And then planning my lessons. How am I going to do this? So all of that was always on my mind. But now, now I'm leave work at work and don't have to think about it again until the next day.
Sounds like a good balance.
All right, so I'll pass over to Luke. If you have any questions that you think of later, feel free to contact me on LinkedIn. I think my details are somewhere earlier in the chat. I'm always open for a chat and to, hear your questions and hear your thoughts.
Cool. Thanks, Amelia. Before we go into the practical session, I'll also just add that we have a very active alumni network as well. So we've had around 250 to 300 people actually complete the whole program with us, and they are all now out in industry. And we run regular events to invite people back into the office who've been through the data school. And many of those alumni are now working in industry, and many of them are in positions where they can hire into their own teams as well. And because they've been through the data school, they tend to come back to us in the first instance if they've got an opening in one of their teams and they're looking to hire. So there are lots of opportunities for roles post the data school which haven't been advertised yet, and we're also seeing increased competition from clients to hire our upcoming leavers. And we have clients sometimes coming into the office and pitching to our upcoming leavers about positions that they are going to be recruiting for. So there's lots of opportunity afterwards as well, and we're quite keen to keep everyone within the wider network of the data school. Okay, so what I'd like you all to do is, somewhere in the comments there is a link to our file share. It is https://til.bi/tab training. So if you could all put that into a web browser, that will take you to a Google Drive file share. I'm just going to rearrange my screens here and put StreamYard over here. Okay, I'm going to share my screen as well. There we go. I suggest for this section of the session, if you put your StreamYard link into full screen, because it's probably going to help you see what my mouse is doing a little bit easier. Okay, so hopefully you've clicked on that link, and that will take you through to the Google Drive file share that you can see on the screen. What I would like you to do is to click into the first folder called Data. I'm highlighting that on the screen for you. And that will take you through to a load of different files. And the one that we're going to be using for the purposes of this follow along dashboard build is sample EU Superstore. So third file from the bottom. If you can just download that, save that in your downloads folder somewhere, or in your on your desktop, wherever you like, we're going to be using that one. I'll also say that everything in this file share is yours to download. I'm not precious about any of it. None of it is confidential data. There's a whole load of stuff in there which we're not going to get the chance to look at today, but if you want to, you're welcome to explore it or download it all, completely up to you. I'd also like you to open Tableau Public as well, and I'll bring that onto the screen. So hopefully you've downloaded it. If you haven't, it's probably a bit late now, but you will have the recording of this to follow along to. And I'll go into this in a bit more detail shortly. One thing I'd like you to do and to think about when you are performing any data analysis, regardless of whether you are using Tableau or not, is to have a look at the data set that you're using. Okay, so I'm going to bring on the EU Superstore data set onto the screen, and we'll just have a quick look at it, and we can get to know our data and sort of get a couple of steps ahead if we do this and try and understand various things about it. So a good question to ask is, what does one row of data mean in your data set? And in this case, we've got a data set relating to a fictional superstore. They're selling things like office supplies, technology products, things like that. And we're going to have a look at the various columns. So we can see that in column A, we have a unique row ID for each row of data. We then have some information around the order that's been placed. So we have a unique order ID column. We have a date the order was placed, a date it was sent, how it was sent. And then in column F through to column L, we have some information about the customers. So who bought our products, where they live, that sort of thing. Then from column M onwards, we have information about what it is they bought. So column M to column P, we have a product ID, a category and subcategory that product sits in, and also in column P, the product itself. And then finally, towards the end, we have 4 columns of metrics or measures, as Tableau calls them. So sales, quantity, discount, and profit. So in this case, we can say that each row of data, each row in this data set is a transaction. Okay, so taking this top one as an example, Aaron Smaling has bought some folders, some blue folders, and then we can see what the sales value of that was, the quantity if there was a discount, and the profit that we made on that particular transaction. But it looks like he's also ordered multiple things as well. So there's 7 transactions within this order. It's got the same order ID in column B. So I guess you can compare it to Amazon. Maybe you might buy multiple things in an Amazon order. They're each individual transactions, but they get rolled up into one order and sent out. We also have a couple of other tabs in here. We have a returns tab. That's we're not going to do anything with this today, but that's just whether an order's been returned. Maybe a product was faulty or they changed their mind. And finally, another tab with some salespeople there. Again, we're not going to do anything with that today. Okay, so let's jump over into Tableau instead. And this is Tableau Public that we're using. Stephanie mentioned it before. So the interface and the functionality, to all intents and purposes, is identical to the full fat version of Tableau. And what they do with Tableau Public, what we're using today, is they just limit what you can connect to. So you can see on the left-hand side in this blue section, we have all of our data connections. So we can connect to different file types. So Microsoft Excel, a text file would include something like a CSV file. Even though you normally open those in Excel, a CSV file is a kind of text file. We've got JSON data, which is a kind of nested data structure. We can connect to PDF files if we want to. If there's a table of numbers in the PDF, Tableau can recognize those and you can analyze them as if it was a spreadsheet. We can do custom mapping with the spatial file option. And we can connect to output from statistical softwares like SPSS or Stata as well. Now, the full fat version of Tableau, you can connect to all of those and more. Lots of database options. In this case, with Tableau Public, you can't really connect to any databases. You can connect to Google Drive if you want to, but that's about it, really. But today we're going to be using the Microsoft Excel connection. So you've got two options to load Tableau in. You can either click on the Excel option on the left, and that will take you through to a File Explorer window, and you simply navigate to your downloads or your desktop where you saved our Superstore dataset, or you can just drag it in from a File Explorer window. So I'm going to do that. So on another screen here on my laptop, I've got that spreadsheet that we've just looked at, and I'm just going to drag it in. You can see me dragging it in now, and just release it into the middle. And Tableau has loaded that up. This is kind of the initial load up screen for your data. And there's a few different things happening on this screen. So first of all, we can see on the left-hand side that we're connected to a Microsoft Excel file called Sample EU Superstore. We knew that anyway, but that's just there if we want to check. We have underneath that something called a data interpreter, and this is specific to Excel files only. It doesn't appear with other file types. So we've probably all seen those spreadsheets that people get very proud of, where you've got nicely formatted titles and merged cells and missing rows and all of that. Tableau prefers, like we just saw in the spreadsheet that we looked at, it prefers to have one row of headers and all the data underneath. And it's the same with pretty much every business intelligence tool that you look at. But the data interpreter will kind of look past all of those nicely merged headers and all of that stuff and find where the data starts. So we don't need to use that today. Underneath that, we have got our three tabs: orders, people, and returns. We just saw that in our spreadsheet. And underneath that, we have got some things called named ranges, which is again specific to Excel, and we're not going to do anything with those today. This is where you can give a name to a particular area of a spreadsheet. So we know we're going to be looking at our orders tab. As we hover over our orders tab, we can see there's a little grid icon to the right-hand side. This allows us to see a preview of that data. If we click on that, and we see the same data that we just saw in the spreadsheet. And we also get some information about the makeup of that file. So we can see a kind of metadata summary there. We've got 10,000 rows and 20 columns. Okay. Now to load the order tab into Tableau so we can start making charts, what we're going to do is just left click and drag that orders tab into the middle where it says drag tables here. And what you'll see is Tableau loads up a preview of that data that we've just looked at in Excel. I say a preview, it gives us 100 rows. And the idea is here really not to load up the entire data set, because you could in theory be connected to a data set with potentially billions of rows. And that would take a lot of computing power of your machine to render all of that information. So what we're doing here really is just eyeballing the data to check that it's been ingested correctly into Tableau. One thing we are going to do before we go any further is just minimize this kind of square window to the left. It's not really relevant to what we're doing today. So there's a little left-facing arrow. If you can just click on that, that will just minimize that for us. What we can see as well is when Tableau has brought the data in from Excel, it's allocated a different data type to each column of data. And we can see that in these headers along the top. Okay, we can see a hash sign. A hash sign means that's a numerical field. We can see ABC. That means this is a string field or a text field. Tableau will recognize multiple formats of dates as well. So whenever you see a calendar, that's where Tableau has recognized that there's a date in that field. And as we'll see shortly, Tableau is really powerful for mapping. It's got a geographic database that downloads with the product. And if it detects a geographical field, it will give it a globe icon. And that means we can create a map from it. As we scroll over to the right-hand side of our preview, we can see our measures. And you'll see these are all hash signs. These are green rather than blue. And I'll talk through the differences between green and blue fields in a minute, but it's kind of a fundamental part of Tableau really to understand the differences between those two. If you want more preview of data, you can overwrite the 100. You can have 1,000 if you want to. Up to you, not much point, but you can do that. In the same way that I suggested you would look at your data set before analyzing it, I'd also suggest that you think about some questions that you can ask yourself, because very often with data, it can be quite overwhelming. You might have a new data set, you're kind of familiar with the topic, but you're not familiar with the intricacies of what the data is showing you. And you can go around in circles sometimes. So keeping it really simple with asking yourself the W questions, so who, what, when, where, why, those sorts of questions can actually help you overcome that initial kind of confusion or shock at a new data set and if you're stumped for ideas. So bit of a hint there. Another thing I would suggest is only bring in data that you know you need to use. Might sound strange, but let's imagine you've got a data set with 20 years worth of data, but you're only interested in the last 3 years. There's no point bringing the whole thing in because you're making your computer do more work. You're bringing in 17 years of data, which you're not going to use. Okay, so a feature that's overlooked a little bit on this screen is the data source filters, and this allows you to filter out data right at the beginning. So you're only bringing in, the relevant data to what you want to do. So I'm just going to show you this. Don't worry about following along. I just clicked on the add button there, but let's say I wanted to add a filter for a specific country. Maybe I'm interested in only a particular country. Let's say Austria. I'm going to click OK here. And what you'll see is all of the data underneath updating to relate only to Austria. So we can see now all of that geographic data is telling us that we're looking at Austria. Okay, so bear that in mind when you're analyzing data. I'm just going to remove this filter because we don't need it for this. Okay, cool. That's the kind of important data load up screen. And at this stage, if you see any fields that have been brought in incorrectly in terms of the type of data that they've been given, you can click on any of these icons and simply reallocate it to a different data type. Okay, so that's simple. But for the most part, Tableau gets this right pretty much all of the time. Okay, let's start building some charts. So what I'd like you to do is click on sheet 1 at the bottom, and this will load up what we call our canvas in Tableau. And I seem to have connected twice to my data set. Let me just remove that one. Okay. So you may see a dashboard in Tableau with multiple charts, lots of individual elements in a dashboard. Now, each of those elements in the dashboard needs to be created in a separate sheet. So you create all the charts separately, and then on the dashboard, you bring them together to make them interactive. And that's where the power of this stuff really comes in, because you can start asking questions of your data from all angles, really. And on this screen, we can see all of our fields from our spreadsheet on the left-hand side. And you'll see that they're divided into two sections. We have the blue fields and we have the green fields underneath. So the Tableau terminology for blue fields is dimensions, and dimensions are categorical data. So things like country names, maybe team names if it's sports data, or order numbers, anything like that that's not a numerical field, basically. You can have numerical dimensions. We do have row ID in there, but that's not a field you would want to aggregate or make calculations on, probably. So that's counted as a dimension in this case, even though it's a numerical field. And then we have all of our green fields, our measures, which in Tableau speak are called continuous fields, and they're underneath there. So let's imagine we're in charge of this business, this superstore, and what we want to do is find out how we're doing in terms of profit and sales. Okay, are we making money? Are our sales healthy? That sort of stuff. And to do that, we probably need to know at some sort of level, what are we selling? So what we're going to do is we're going to left click and drag our subcategory field from our dimensions. And we're going to drag that out. And you'll notice that I haven't released my mouse yet, but different areas of the screen have orange outlines around them. And that means that you can drop what you've picked up in any of those locations. In this case, we're going to drop subcategory onto rows. And if any of you have used pivot tables in Excel before, then you'll find quite a few similarities between those and the functionality of Tableau as well. And you'll see, as you'd expect with a pivot table, or only the dimension members of the subcategory have been summarized. So these are all the individual unique subcategories in that column of data in our spreadsheet. So to find out what we're selling, we then need to grab our sales continuous field, our measure, and we're going to left click and drag that and put that onto columns. You'll notice before we go any further as well, we have something called Show Me on the right-hand side of the screen. This is Tableau's chart building wizard. I'm not going to use it today, and I'd encourage you not to use it as well. It doesn't let you kind of get an understanding of how things work within Tableau if you use it. It just creates the charts for you kind of by magic. It's much better to learn Tableau by dragging things out individually like we're doing at the moment. So I'm just going to click on that Show Me and just get rid of that. And you can see that Tableau has given us a bar chart in this case. We haven't asked Tableau to give us a bar chart, but it's just done that because there's an algorithm built into Tableau to give you the best chart type from a visual analytics best practice perspective for the fields that you've chosen. And for categorical data, 95% of the time, a bar chart is the best chart type to use. There are these things called pre-attentive attributes, which are kind of the building blocks of data visualization, how we interpret things visually. There's a whole load of them like color, size, position, orientation, but length, which obviously a bar chart is using, is the one that we interpret the best, okay, the most easily. So Tableau's given us that. All right, for the moment, what we're going to do before we go any further is you'll see there's a drop down at the top of the screen that has standard in it. What we're going to do is click into that and just change that to entire view, and that's just going to fill up the screen to the most available space that we've got. Next, we're going to have a look at these icons at the top of the screen, because these are kind of essential to understand as well. Going from left to right, we've got the Tableau icon. That's just a toggle back to this initial load up screen. You don't really ever need to use that, to be honest, but it is there if you want. We then have our undo button or our back button. This is your friend in Tableau. In Excel, you can only go back a certain number of times. In Tableau, you can go back as many times as you like since you opened the file. Even if you save it in the meantime, you can still go back to before you saved it. We have a forward button or a redo button. We haven't done anything yet to turn that on. We have the kind of universal save icon, our floppy disk. It's asking me to sign into Tableau Public, so I'll just do that quickly. And this actually is a brand new version of Tableau Public released last week. Now, the options are, actually, I'm not going to do this yet because it's going to publish it to my profile. Previously, before last week, your only option was to publish your work to your profile online every time you wanted to save it. Okay, but Tableau last week announced at their conference that you can do a file and save as and save it locally as well, which actually is a really great feature for this, because it used to get a little bit annoying having to publish it each time. So you can say file, save as, and you can save it as a Tableau workbook or a Tableau packaged workbook. And a packaged workbook contains the data. A Tableau workbook doesn't. So if you want to send your dashboard to someone else, if you had your data set saved on your desktop and you used a TWB file, the person you send it to wouldn't be able to open it, or it would just be blank because their computer would be looking for a file on your desktop. So my advice would be to use a Tableau packaged workbook, TWBX, kind of whenever you want to do something like that. But what I'll do, I won't save it now. I'll publish it to my profile at the end so you can see how to do that as well. Okay, we can add extra data sources or additional data sources into our workbook as well. There's no limit really. You're only kind of limited by the power of your computer. So I'd exercise caution with that. I've seen lots of Tableau workbooks with multiple data sources in there, but just kind of use your judgment if they're huge and maybe your computer might be a bit old or whatever. That can all have impacts on performance. Next icon looks like a bar chart with a plus. That's for a new worksheet. So what we're in at the moment with this bar chart, that will give us a brand new blank one. There's also a little arrow to the right-hand side of that, which will give you a new worksheet, new dashboard, new story. These little tabs at the bottom I'm highlighting now do exactly the same thing. Okay, so you'll find as you use Tableau a little bit more that there is always multiple ways of doing things. The next icon looks like two overlapping bar charts. This is where you can duplicate your chart that you've created. You might spend a long time formatting a chart in a particular way. It can be a little bit fiddly sometimes, the formatting in Tableau. But if you know you want to use that same formatting again, what you can do is just duplicate the chart once you've finished it and then swap out the fields, and that formatting will remain as well. If you decide that what you've done is no good or it's not telling you what you're expecting, what you can do is just clear the sheet. That's like the bar chart with the cross. If I click on that, everything goes blank. You go back to square one. I can, of course, get that back with my back button if I want to. We then have this cool little guy here. This one changes the perspective on your chart. So if I click that, I can have a vertical bar chart or a horizontal bar chart. Okay, kind of toggle between the two. I would suggest with categorical bar charts like this, you always have them as horizontal because the headers can get truncated. Sometimes they get flipped and you have to twist your head to see what they say. It's much easier when they're horizontal like this because you don't have to do any twisting of your head. If you are using a bar chart for time, however, which is a perfectly valid chart type to use for showing time, always use a vertical one because in most cultures we associate the movement of time with a left-right kind of movement. Okay, next two buttons probably look familiar to you if you've used Excel before. These are our sort buttons. The default sort in Tableau is alphabetical, as we can see at the moment with all of our different subcategories. We're going to sort this descending by value. Okay, so click the right-hand sort button and you'll find our bar chart sorts in order of value. Next thing we need to decide is, do we want an axis or do we want labels? And at the moment, and the default kind of option is to have an axis. And these axes are related to our green fields. That's another characteristic of these two different types of, or two different colors of fields. Green fields normally have an axis associated with them, and a blue field is a dimension, a categorical field. So that will have headers and it will be slicing our data into however many bars, in this case, for the number of subcategories. So to get labels onto our bar chart, what we're going to do is click on this little T with a hashed square around it. Clicked on that and you can see we've got labels at the end of our bars. Now, if we have labels, we don't need an axis. We're doing something called double encoding here, which is essentially wasting space because we're showing the same information twice. And when you create a dashboard, you've got limited real estate on your screen. So you've got to use it wisely, and duplicating information is just wasting space and it's unnecessary. So what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of our axis. So I'm going to right click on our axis, and you'll see there's in the pop-up that appears, you'll see something that says show header. If you click on that, your axis will disappear. You can, of course, press your back button to get that back if you want to, or as we know, we've got a green field, and that green field will have an axis associated with it. We're going to right click on that, and you can also just tick the show header box again, click on that, and that axis will reappear if you wanted to, but we're going to leave it off for the moment. All right, so this is telling us what we're selling. There's a few questions here which we're going to resolve. First of all is, are we making any money on these sales? Now, it's all very well knowing what we're selling, but if we don't know the profit, we don't know if our company is doing well or not. So luckily we have a profit field in our data set, as we saw. And what we're going to do is left click and drag that profit field, and we're going to put that onto this button that says color. Okay, just going to drop it onto there. This area which I'm highlighting now is called the marks card, and this is really crucial to how Tableau operates, and it's the way that you can impact and affect the visuals and change their appearance. So you'll see it says automatic. That's the chart type that Tableau has given us. It's given us a bar chart automatically. If you want to change it to a different chart type, you can click that drop down, and you could change it to a circle if you want to. We're not going to do that though. We're going to keep it as a bar chart. So you can see immediately something's happening here. We can see something's happening with tables, and tables is orange. We can see also we have a color legend on the top right for our profits. This is using something called a diverging color scheme, where the value crosses zero. Okay, so negative values in this case are all orange, positive values are different shades of blue. And consequently, we can see we're losing money on tables. If I hover over tables, the information that appears is called a tooltip. You can see we're losing almost 21,000 in profit, and even though we're making 105,000 in sales. So we're starting to uncover some insights into our business. Now, if I was with a client now, the first thing the client would ask me is, what currency is this in? So if you're dealing with financial data, always remember to put a currency in, because otherwise it's just just aggregate numbers. So what we need to do is change the formatting of these fields, profit and of sales, to make them a currency. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click on profit, and we are going to go down to default properties, and we are then going to choose number format. So right click on profit, default properties, and then number format. And in this case, what we want to do, there's lots of different options. We're going to choose currency custom. We don't need any decimal places because these are pretty large numbers. Having decimals is pointless. They're also whole numbers as well, so even less point. And we're just going to leave everything else how it is. You can change how the negative numbers are displayed if you want to. You can also change the pound sign to other currency symbols if you want to as well. Or you can aggregate values to thousands or millions or billions. But we're just going to leave that exactly as it is and click OK. Now you'll see when we hover over our bars, you can see that we have got a pound sign next to our profit. Okay. So we're going to do the same thing now for sales. So we're going to right click on sales. We're going to go to default properties and number format, currency custom, 0 decimals, and leave everything else as it is. And click OK. And now you'll see pound signs appear next to the labels on our bars. Cool. So well done, everyone. You've just created your first chart in Tableau. One thing I would also recommend doing is renaming all of your charts. Tableau will number them sequentially, and you can soon end up with 40 of them and you can't remember what's in each one. So what we're going to do is just double click where it says sheet 1 at the bottom, exactly the same as if you were renaming a tab in Excel, and we'll call this bars. Okay, let's start a brand new worksheet now as well. So I'm going to use my favorite option for this, which is just clicking the tab at the bottom. You can, if you want to, click the button at the top, totally up to you. And there we go. You see we have sheet 2, and it's another completely blank one. So what we're going to look at here is mapping in Tableau. And Tableau is an American product, so it goes down to zip code level in the US, and it goes down to different levels in different countries depending on what you want to map. In the UK, it goes to outcode level, which is the first part of your postcode. So I'm in W7 at the moment, so it would go down to that that level. It doesn't go down to individual postcodes in the UK, but you can join data in Tableau, which we're not going to do today, but you can get a lookup table, for example, from the Royal Mail, which has got latitudes and longitudes for every single postcode at an individual level, and you could join that into your data. Likewise with other things like parliamentary constituencies or police force areas, things that Tableau wouldn't necessarily know, you can map all those things through downloading shape files for free from the internet. But again, that's for a different time. For the moment, what we've got is all our geographic fields grouped together. Tableau's done this automatically. Another kind of clever feature is that Tableau recognizes the relationships between different geographies. So it knows that cities belong to states and states belong to countries. And it's put those together, and we'll see how we can use those in a minute. But to create a map from a geographical field, it's super easy. All we need to do is double click on a particular geographic field. So let's use country. So I'm going to double click on country. And you see Tableau has gone to our country field in our data set and thrown all of those out onto a map where it's got a hit. It's got a hit on all of them. We've got no error messages, so it's recognized all the countries. And at the moment, all we have is a blue dot, which is the average latitude and longitude for each country. Okay, so if you wanted to know where the middle of the UK is geographically, it's somewhere near Birmingham. But all this is saying at the moment is that these countries are present in our data. So we can create 2 different types of maps out of the box in Tableau. We can create a shape map and a filled map. We're going to create both of them. So first of all, we need a measure. And what we do next kind of depends or influences the type of map that we create. We're going to create a shape map first. So grab your sales and drop your sales onto the button that says size on your marks card. So once again, drop sales onto the size button on your marks card. And what you'll see is those circles have resized depending on the sales value associated with that country. And we've got a little color or little size legend there rather. So one thing I'm going to do before we go any further is to make those circles bigger. Sometimes the really small ones can be difficult to see. So once we've done this, if we click on that size button, you'll notice that there's a slider underneath, and you can just make these much bigger, and you'll find that they're easier to see. Okay, so just change that to whatever you think is reasonable. The good thing about this kind of map is that it allows us to represent 2 different measures visually. So we can grab our profit and we can put profit onto color as well. And similar with our bar chart, what you can see is that we have our color legend on the right-hand side, and we can see that certain countries are actually losing us money. So the Netherlands is struggling. Okay, I've got a question in from Max. Is it possible to convert the currency to the US dollars using the exchange rates? Yes, it is. Again, you would need to find the exchange rates and join those in. So you can create calculations in Tableau. We're not going to go into that today, but very much the same as in Excel. You've got different formulas you can use, and you can create calculations on pretty much everything. It's really, really powerful. If you, for the purposes of the video, if you want to create a calculation, you click on the little arrow at the top here, and then create calculated field. And then there's a little arrow to the right-hand side if you click on that, you can see all of the functions that Tableau has within it. If you click on any of them, you can see some example syntax of how to make those work, and they're all grouped up as well. So if you're interested in date fields, for example, you can just click on the date section and all of those fields will be together. But we're not going to go into those today. There's plenty online about that as well if you wanted to check that out in your own time. Okay, so we've created our first map. We're going to call this shape map. And while we're here, we're just going to have a quick look at the mapping options that you have in Tableau. So right at the very top of the screen, you've got an option in the top menu called Map. If you click on that and go to Background Layers, you'll see a section open on the left-hand side of various things that you can include. So you've got different levels of detail or things to include in your map. I would say, as a rule, try to keep maps as simple as possible, because there's no point putting streets and highways into this map now, because we're not looking at data at that level, and it would just introduce more kind of noise. We can change the appearance of the map, so it defaults to a light map with a white sea, grey landmass. We can change that to a normal map with a blue sea. Maybe we're creating a dark themed dashboard, so you can create a dark map. You can have satellite maps. You can also bring in custom maps as well. You'll see that Tableau uses something called Mapbox, and you can create a Mapbox account, and I've seen pirate maps and cartoon maps and all sorts of things in Tableau. So you can do that, and it essentially puts a different background behind the map that you're seeing at the moment. But feel free to explore. If you're looking at US data as well, you have data from the US Census in Tableau already. So you can, obviously it won't work here because it's a European map, but you can overlay lots of different socioeconomic data and demographic information from the US onto your maps if you want to. All right, so that's our shape map. Let's create another blank sheet. So I just click the button at the bottom again, and we're going to start off exactly the same way. So we're going to double click on country and region. This time we're going to create a filled map, otherwise known as a choropleth map. And this has certain advantages and disadvantages as opposed to the shape map we just created. What we're going to do is we're going to grab our profit, and rather than put it on size, we're going to put it straight onto color here. And what that's going to do is give us a nice filled map. These give us really nice buttons to click on in a dashboard. You'll notice in the shape map we did just now, some of those circles are really small. So on a dashboard, if someone's looking at it on a small screen, it can be difficult to click on those values. So this gives us nice outlines of countries colored by the profit associated with them. The downfall of this, or the drawback of this, is that you can only really represent one thing visually. In this case, it's profit. If we wanted to get sales into here, what we're going to do is drop that onto the button that says tooltip here. So I'm going to grab sales, put that onto tooltip, and you'll see that when we hover over, we can see the sales value as well. And just quickly, we can interact in our map with our map in different ways. So we have a little search button here. You can type in a location if you want to. It kind of tries to predict what you're doing. We've got zooms, plus or minus here, that zooms in. You can use your mouse wheel, which is how I normally do it. So I'm just scrolling my mouse wheel now, zooming in and out. If you change the perspective on your map at all, you'll see that you get this little map pin with an X next to it, where my mouse is now. If you click that, it will reset it back to its initial starting overview perspective. The little play button, looks like a play button on Spotify or a stereo, if you're old enough to remember them. We've got different ways of interacting with our map. So first of all, we can zoom in on an area. So I could zoom in on the very top of Scotland there. We can see those. Again, click the map pin just to reset it. We can pan our map as well. We don't really need to use that because we can hold down our left mouse button rather, and just drag it around if we want to. And then the final three options, the square, the circle, and the kidney-shaped one, are ways to select things on your map. So the default is a square or rectangle selection, like this. We do have a radial selector, which is the circular one. And if you zoom in far enough, it will give you a kind of distance of that radius as well. And then the final kidney-shaped one allows us to draw freehand around different countries in our map if we want to. Okay. Again, I'm going through this quite quickly, and I apologise, but we are slightly limited for time. But you can watch the video back. We're going to call this filled map. And next, we're going to look at how Tableau deals with dates as well. Dates are quite unique in that they can be blue and they can be green. Actually, before we do that, I'm going to show you the benefits of this hierarchy that I talked about earlier. So you'll see when we double-clicked country, Tableau put that immediately, automatically on the detail shelf in our marks card. You can see the 4 dots. Detail basically just affects the granularity of the chart. So whatever is on detail is the level of granularity of the particular chart or map you're looking at. So in this case, it's country that we're looking at. But you'll see we do have this little plus icon at the end. And that means there's a hierarchy here, and we can drill down into that hierarchy. So if I click that plus, you'll see it goes down to the next level, which is state or province. We can see that the profit at that level. Good thing to mention as well is you'll see that Scotland, England, Wales, we don't have any data from Northern Ireland, but all 4 of the home nations are counted as states rather than countries. The country is the UK, the state or province is England, Scotland, etc. So in geographical terms in Tableau, it's no different to Normandy or Brittany or wherever else. We do have also city in that in that hierarchy, and we can go down one more level as well. So I can click the plus next to state and province and go down to city level. And Tableau just gives us circles for cities because obviously geographically they're smaller. Also, they tend not to have defined geographical boundaries as well, and they're constantly growing. So it makes more sense having those as a circle. And then we can go back up the hierarchy by clicking the minus signs as well. Let's just go back up to country level. So click the minus sign on country. All right, another brand new worksheet. And we're going to look at dates, as I mentioned just now. So we have dispatch date and order date. We're going to be using order date because that's when the order was placed. So what I'd like you to do is left click and drag that out onto columns. And we're going to create a sales profile for our company here. So we dragged out order date, and we are going to drag out sales as well and put that onto rows. And you'll see that Tableau gives us a line chart in this case rather than a bar chart. That's because in most cases, a line chart is the best way to view temporal data. You could use a bar chart if you want to. In this case, it would be fine. And we could, again, click the drop down, change that to a bar if we wanted to, and that would be perfectly fine. But for the purposes of this, we're going to be leaving it as the automatic option, which is a line chart. You'll notice when you drag order date out, the default for date fields is at the year level, but you also see that we've got that little plus icon there again. Now, Tableau creates a hierarchy automatically for dates. In some similar softwares, you have to specify in the source data a column for year, a column for quarter, a column for month, a column for day, etc. Tableau will work all of the hierarchy out based on one column of data. In this case, order date, which is good because it saves us some hassle of preparing data even more. And you'll notice also this is a blue date. Now, as we click down that hierarchy, I'm going to click the plus sign. You'll see we then go down to quarter level, and you'll see the line is broken here, and it's separated out. These are blue fields, so they're like dimensions, and they slice our data, hence the line is broken. And again, there are various pros and cons of the 2 different data types, or 2 different types of dates, I should say. We'll do both of them so you can see the difference. But as we drill down, you can see we go from quarter to month, etc., right the way down to day, which is the most granular level of data in our spreadsheet, you'll see that it doesn't fit on the screen. And scroll bars in data visualization, particularly horizontal scroll bars, are pretty bad news, and stuff can hide off the screen and it can be difficult to see it. So if you're experiencing a situation like this with a huge scroll bar and it's difficult to really make any sense of this, it's probably telling you that you want to use the other type of date field, which we're going to look at shortly. So I'm going to go back up to quarter level. So I press the minus sign on the quarter field at the top. And blue dates have some distinct advantages in certain cases. Let's say I was interested in a particular quarter, let's say quarter 3. I could hover over each of the quarter 3s in my data and maybe make a note of it, but it's quite manual. But what we could do is just swap year and quarter around. So at the moment, we've got these big rectangles called panes in Tableau. These are being determined by the year at the top. And then we have our kind of more granular level of quarter at the bottom. What we can do is if we just left click and drag our year to the right-hand side of quarter and drop it, you'll see that those values have swapped. So we've got year at the bottom and quarter at the top. So we can see that, for example, with quarter 3, something happened, might be COVID related, who knows, but we plateaued in our quarter 3s between 2020 and 21. So another insight that's popped out through us, changing things around in Tableau a little bit. And another thing with these types of dates, these blue dates, is you can change the perspective as well. So I could grab my year and put that to the left-hand side of my sales and have some vertical charts as well. Maybe I'm creating a dashboard with a bit of space to the right-hand side, and I want to put a chart in there. This might be a good option. But for the moment, we're just going to go back and leave this as it was. So I put year back to the left of quarter. And we're going to change this from sheet 4 to blue date. And we're going to create another sheet. And this one's going to be called green date. And our starting point will be exactly the same as for the blue date. So we're going to grab our order date, put that onto columns, and we're going to grab our sales and put that onto rows. Cool. Next thing we're going to do is we are going to right click on our blue year of order date. And you'll notice that where I'm moving my mouse now, there are 2 different sections which look like they relate to dates. So we've got one with the year that's ticked. These are our blue dates, our discrete dates, and then we have our continuous dates, our green dates underneath. So what we're going to do is just click on the other year that you can see in the second section. You see a couple of things have happened. First of all, our date field has gone from blue to green. Secondly, we now have an axis or a timeline at the bottom. Rather than individual headers for each year, I can't click on those individually. I just have one constant timeline there, like an axis. It's a green field, so we get an axis. We have an axis for sales, and we now have an axis for our dates as well. And what this means for us is when we drill down, I'm going to click on the plus icon. What you'll notice is that line doesn't break now. So in actual fact, this chart we're looking at now and our blue date chart, these are exactly the same graphs, except one has a broken line and one doesn't. And Tableau will fit all of our date field, all of our date options onto the screen. So as we drill down, we don't get that horizontal scroll bar that we saw when we went down to day. So I can go right the way down to day here and it fits it all onto the screen for me. So normally speaking, with really granular data, green dates tend to be more flexible because you can do charts like this and get everything onto one screen. The only difference here to be mindful of as well is when you want to go back up the hierarchy. I don't know why Tableau does this, but if you hover your mouse at the intersecting points of the 2 axes, you'll see the minus sign there, and you click on that to go back up again. And we're just going to leave that on quarter. One thing you can do as well, up to this point, we've only used our measures to color things with. You can color things with discrete fields, with dimensions as well. So we have a field in our dimensions called region. And what we're going to do is drop that onto color. And what it's going to do is going to slice this overall line into however many lines necessary for the number of regions that we've got. And I know there's 3 regions in this data. So I'm going to drop that onto color, and you'll see now we get a line for central, north, and south as well. All right. We're going to build a dashboard now out of what we've created. We're not going to use all the charts, but we are going to hit this middle button at the bottom. Looks like a window with a plus. This is our new dashboard button. And you'll see a similar, but not entirely the same screen. This is our dashboard canvas. And you'll see we also have a size here. Tableau defaults to this kind of weird little size. Depending on the resolution of your computer, it could give you more or less available space. But you can see on my screen here, we've got this kind of A4 size or A4 shape option. What we're going to do is click on where it says size. And rather than having a range, which means it'll contract or expand depending on the size of the screen you look at it on, we're going to change that to automatic. And you'll notice that white section now fills your screen and all of the screen space is available for you. Now, I wouldn't advocate making a dashboard in automatic with the automatic option, because if you create a nice looking dashboard on your lovely HD widescreen and send it to someone on one of those old school square monitors with poor resolution, what's going to happen is that dashboard's going to get squashed and it's going to look rubbish. Okay, so what we're going to do is, this is a little kind of hack. We're now going to change it back to being fixed. And what it's going to do is fix the dashboard at a custom size for your particular monitor. Some companies have set dashboard sizes that they use for everything. For this, what we're doing now, even if it's too big for someone's screen, when they look at it, what they can do is just zoom out and get over it that way. It's not going to distort or look different. So we then have our sheets that we've created. What we're going to do is grab our filled map, and as you hover over them, you can see a thumbnail of that particular chart. And we're going to left click and drag our filled map into the dashboard. We're also going to grab our bar chart as well. And I'm going to left click and drag that in. You'll see when I move my mouse, there's a gray area over different parts of the screen. That's telling me where it's going to be dropped. So I'm going to drop this on the right-hand side of the screen next to the map. And then we're going to use our green date field as well. And we're going to put this under the bar chart. So I'm going to left click and drag that and put that underneath our bar chart. One thing I am going to do is give my bar chart a bit more space. And you'll see if you click into any of the white space in these charts, you get the gray outline. And you can drag the borders of those around. So I'm going to click into the bar chart so I get the gray outline, hover my mouse over the bottom of it, and just left click and drag that down. Line charts normally don't need as much space. All good dashboards need a good title. Bottom left corner, we've got a button that says show dashboard title. We're going to click into that and check that box. And now you'll see we have a dashboard title. That's taken from initially whatever the dashboard is called in the tab. We can change that though. I'm going to click into that box so I get the gray outline and just give that a little bit more space. So I'm going to drag that title box and make it bigger. And then we're going to give this a sensible title as well. And I'm going to double click into where it says dashboard 1 in the title. And you get this kind of Microsoft Word type interface. And we're just going to delete where it says sheet name. And we're going to call this European Sales and Profit. I'm going to make this bold, nice and big and blue just because. And click OK. If anyone was wondering why Tableau defaults to blue and orange and not red and green, that's for reasons of color blindness. And I think 1 in 8 men in particular are red-green colorblind, and some of our clients have got thousands of users potentially. So if you send something out that's using red and green and a load of people can't see it, then you're going to get a load of emails back asking you to fix it. And there's a real life example as well. I think Wales and Ireland will never play each other in the Six Nations using their normal kit. One of them will always have to change because the BBC broadcast one of their games about 3 or 4 years ago, and a whole load of people who were watching the game couldn't tell the difference between the two teams unless they saw the shirt sponsor. So there's some real life implications for this. We're going to do the titles of our charts as well. So rather than filled map, that's kind of a useless title. We can see that's what it is. We're going to ask questions in our title, and this is a really good way of engaging our audience and encouraging them to jump in. You know, we're naturally curious creatures, so asking a question is a good way to challenge people. So I'm going to say, where are we profitable or unprofitable? I just double clicked on where it said filled map there. I'm going to make this bold and maybe size 12. And do the same for the bars. I'll say, what are we selling? Again, bold and 12. And then for green date, I will say, what's our sales profile by region and quarter. Okay. So there's a couple of different ways of making our charts interactive. At the moment, these are just static charts, and we're going to look at the easiest way of doing it. I would encourage you to look at dashboard filters as well, sometimes called quick filters. These are kind of drop-down Excel type filters that you can use to control your dashboard as well. Probably won't have time to go into that today, but we'll show you dashboard actions, which are pretty cool. So what I want you to do is to click into white space in any of your charts. Let's start with the map, and you'll see that we get this little tab in the top right or top left of each of these charts that we've created. And the third option down looks like a funnel. So what we're going to do is click on the funnel. It will turn white when you click on it. Do that for each of our charts. So I've clicked in the bar chart now, and I'll click the little funnel. Do the same in the line chart. What this means is we can start asking questions of our data. So we can see that tables are losing us money. It's the only product we're losing money on. So if we click on tables, we can find out where we're losing the money on tables. So we can see that for tables in particular, Germany are really struggling. They're the darkest shade of orangey brown, so they're losing us the most money. So maybe we want to divert some marketing budget to our German table department. And what we can do then to reset the filter, you can either click into white space in that chart, or you can click on the bar or whatever it was that you clicked on as well. But you can ask questions the other way around as well. So we can see that the Netherlands is our least profitable country, losing 41k there. We can click on the Netherlands and see that actually we're losing money on pretty much every product apart from furnishings, where we're barely breaking even. And then you could go down even further, and the line chart has also updated now as well. So that's showing us the overall sales profile for the Netherlands at the moment. But let's say we're interested in bookcases. I can click on that, and I can see now this line chart has updated for bookcases only. So you can drill right the way down into your data as well. Okay, so what do we do next? We've created our first dashboard in Tableau. What I'll say as well, you can hide sheets as well. It's kind of good practice to do that, because what we can do, I'm going to hold down my shift key and highlight all of these tabs that we've used. I'm going to right click and it'll ask you to delete fields, or sorry, delete tabs that you're not using in a dashboard. So I'm not going to do that now because we might want to keep them for reference, but certainly fields or charts that you've used in your dashboard, you can right click. So green date we've used, I can choose to hide that if I want to. And then it's not there, but then I can right click on the dashboard and choose unhide all sheets, and that will come back. All right, so I showed you how you can do file, save as, and save the file locally if you want to. If I click save now, what it's going to ask me to do is publish this to my Tableau public profile. Now, if I have my Tableau public profile saved here, and this is a kind of portfolio of your work, and I'd really recommend that you put things on here and leave your first efforts. It's good to see where you started from and how you've improved, but employers now are looking at people's profiles to to see what kind of stuff they've been doing, and a lot of people develop their own style, their own way of visualizing data. And I can tell now in a lot of cases, the people who I know in the data school or the information lab, I can tell who's created something just by looking at it because they have their own way of doing it. But we'll have a little look more of this in a second. Let's go back into Tableau. It's going to ask me to sign in. If you've downloaded Tableau Public, you will have automatically created a profile anyway. Got the longest email ever. And then my password. And what you'll see now is Tableau will be publishing this to my profile. So I'm going to call this did teach dashboard. Typing's off today. Here we go. And then we're going to say save. What's going to happen now is Tableau is going to publish this up to the web. So the next view we're going to have of this dashboard will be through a web browser. Here we go. So it's loading up in Chrome at the moment. And we've got this dashboard now. It's exactly the same as what we created in Tableau Desktop. So I can click on individual things, interact with it in exactly the same way as before, and you can just share the URL with someone else. Now, the clue is in the name. So everything on Tableau Public is in the public domain, okay? If you've got sensitive data that shouldn't be in the public domain, then be careful and don't use Tableau Public, basically, because what Tableau do is Stephanie mentioned Viz of the Day. Every day, Tableau elect a Viz of the Day. Someone somewhere has created. If you create a lovely dashboard with sensitive data and put it on Tableau Public, it's actually their property now, and they could circulate it on social media around the world. So that's where the paid versions of Tableau come in, where you can properly lock down and permission everything as well. So certain people can only see certain things. That's one of the main differences between this and the paid version. Question from Max: is it possible to prevent others from copying and downloading our data vizzes on the Tableau Public? Yes, it is. So you can go to settings, and then you can either hide things, so you can choose not to show the viz on your profile, and then you can change the access as well to allow people to to either download it or not. I would say though, this is meant to be a learning platform, and it's a really powerful one as well. So it's kind of in the spirit in which it was designed is one where it's for collaborative learning. So we see in our dashboard here, if I click on the logo in the top left for Tableau Public, what we can do is we can see Viz of the Day here. So if I click the See All button on the right hand side, we can see all of the vizzes of the day going back, since time began. I mean, there's thousands of things here, and you can see a great examples of the variety of things that people are creating. And the powerful thing here is that most of these, unless the author has chosen not to allow it, you can download and pull apart. So I'm going to take a gamble at the Price of Prosperity here by Serena, who's a colleague of ours. I'm hoping that she's allowed this to be downloaded. So if I click the little download button in the top right, you can see I get the option to download a Tableau workbook. And I can now, if I click that, I can download that and open it in Tableau Public on my computer, pull it apart and see how she created it. So that dashboard is now opening up. This is now in Tableau Public on my computer, and I can go into particular maps and see exactly how particular charts, see how she's done it. She's written some calculations here, etc. So you can pull it apart, reverse engineer it, and learn from it as well. That's really the power of this particular platform. Question from Blossoming Minds Tuition: can we use the exemplar sets in Tableau Public? Not quite sure what you mean by that, but you can use any data sets that you like that Tableau will connect to. If you're thinking of applying to the data school, as Stephanie said, I wouldn't use Tableau Superstore data set, which we've used today. Like, it's great for training. They have a whole department of people in Seattle who look after this data set and make sure that there are good trends and things built into it. But it's not the most interesting, and your work will be so much better if you choose a data set that you are interested in. If you like music or sport or current affairs, there are loads of data sets out there which you can choose, which you will be more invested in terms of the process. Okay, so the data sets we've provided, yeah, they're just suggestions. They're not an exhaustive list of data sets. A simple Google search a lot of the time with your chosen subject and data or data set afterwards will often yield a lot of results. There are loads of different sites out there, so I'd encourage you to explore as well. Take what we give you as a starting point, as a suggestion, but feel free to delve further. And it's a good way to get your application to stand out, because we see lots of dashboards, and if you choose a really interesting data set, then that's great, because it means we're more invested in it as well. So and yeah, by all means, use them for practice. Practice is great. So okay, I'll leave you with a few ideas for further learning. We have Andy Kriebel, who until earlier this year was our global head coach at the Information Lab and the Data School, and he's probably the best known user of Tableau in the world. So he's moved up to Northumberland with his partner. They've had a baby, and he's started his own business. So unfortunately, he left us, but he's done some amazing videos. He also has his own website as well, which I'd recommend you check out. Another former colleague, Tim Nguena, again, brilliant YouTube channel. Both of these that I've shown you start from the absolute basics and go to really in-depth functionalities as well. So check that out. Stephanie mentioned the successful applications page as well. So that's on our website. It's in the apply section. You can see for all of our recent cohorts what they did in order to get in. So they'll have two dashboards associated with their profile. So Alex here, this was her first application dashboard, and this was her final interview dashboard. So you can see, you'll see some trends of similar or the same data sets in the final interview dashboards. That's because people were in the same batches of interviews. And then we have our meet and greet as well. There is a link in the comments. We run these every couple of months, and they're really fun evenings. Normally, they're an opportunity for you to come into the office and meet the team, see some demos of Tableau and Alteryx, do some networking, and we order a load of pizzas later on about 8 o'clock, and you can have a beer or a soft drink and some pizza and chat to the team and see what you like, and ask any questions. But I think it's 8:58. I think we're pretty much done now. Apologies if that was really quick. We're kind of somewhat pressed for time, but hopefully that gave you an idea in terms of how Tableau can be used and the kind of things that people are doing in Tableau, and hopefully it's given you some ideas of maybe diving into Tableau and exploring it a little bit more. So thanks for all your attention. If there are any questions, by the way,
thanks very much. Yeah. So I was just going to say the same things. If anyone's got any questions, and I'd like to know if you were using it and doing it live while Luke was speaking, how user friendly was it? Because obviously Luke's used to using it day in and day out. If you're new to Tableau, how did you find it? Was it easy to use, intuitive? Did you like it? Yeah, good delivery. Well done. Yeah.
Awesome. So yes, so blossoming minds. Yes, for your application, you choose a data set that you're interested in. We get some people who choose data sets that they think that we might want to see. We see some kind of generic, generic HR data and stuff like that, which is all out there in the internet somewhere, but it's not very interesting. And I struggle to believe anyone is really interested in HR data unless they have to use it for work. So, choose something that aligns with your interests. Okay, yeah, and then for the final interview, we will choose a data set for all the finalists, and we try and find something that is interesting, but people won't necessarily know about. So we would never choose like a football data set or something, because half the finalists would be probably pretty happy with that. But we've had like shark attacks in Australia. My favorite was the treatment of spiders in the media. That was pretty fun. We had Rubik's Cube world champions and loads of others. So something kind of random but fun. Okay. Any comment on Power BI in comparison with Tableau? So Power BI is Microsoft's answer to Tableau, and we do teach that in the data school training as well, because we have some clients that use that. Our preference is always for Tableau. Tableau is more expensive. Power BI is a great dashboarding tool in most cases, but there are some fundamental limitations because it's based on legacy technology. So you can only visualize a certain number of things. I think the maximum is like 3,600 things you can put onto one chart, whereas in Tableau you could have 3.6 million if you wanted. Plus Tableau is very powerful as an analytical tool. You don't necessarily have to create a dashboard at the end of it. It's a really good way to quickly throw some data into it and get ideas about, see what's happening in your data without having to create a dashboard. Power BI, you have to know exactly what you're creating before you create it. There was another question as well about Alteryx. From Max, will there be another webinar on Alteryx soon? Probably not. The reason for that is that there's no free version of Alteryx like there is for Tableau, and that's why we don't include it in the application process. Alteryx actually is really expensive. It's about £4,000 per person per year. Tableau, in comparison, is about £1,000 per person per year for someone to create dashboards. If you're a full-time student, you can get a free copy, and likewise you can with Tableau as well. But generally speaking, we just teach Alteryx from scratch. You can get I think it's a 60-day free trial from their website. So if you want to download that, you can do that. Also, Alteryx doesn't run on Macs as well. You have to run a virtual machine on a Mac if you want to run Alteryx. Same with Power BI actually. If you're okay to carry on for a couple of minutes, I'm happy to answer the other questions. Katie, is that fine with you?
That's absolutely fine. Yeah, thanks, Luke.
Okay, no worries. So a question from Amit: will AI change anything in terms of data analysis? Yes, is the answer. But calculators didn't stop people doing maths, for example. So I think there's a lot of sensationalism, not just in data, but around AI in general. Some of it is justified, of course, but the way that we see AI is that it will help us. Okay, a lot of these software, Tableau included, have started including AI functionality into their products as well. So, it's going to make things quicker. It's going to make things easier. Our experience of AI is that it's not always right. I don't know if you've used ChatGPT much, but you kind of have to take the output in a lot of cases with a pinch of salt. It can get you to the answer, but you generally have to do a little bit of researching and also verifying of the results as well. So there will always be the need for a human input. But yeah, so we're not overly worried about it, really. Hopefully, it's going to be adopted into these softwares in a way that it's going to make them even better. We're starting to see that already. Any final questions? Cool. Well, thanks for all your input, and again, feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn. Happy to connect with anyone, and hopefully see you in real life sometime.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much for your time, both of you. A lot of energy and enthusiasm has gone into this, and the delivery tonight, Luke, was fantastic. I think people really engaged with it, and I love the bit where Chris said he's already off to find a data set. You've already sparked him. He's gone. Wonderful. So thank you all very much for joining us. And it's great to actually provide a webinar with so much detail, and obviously a real need for it. And thank you guys for interacting. So have a lovely evening.
Likewise. Thanks, Katie. Thanks, Stephanie.
Thank you. Bye-bye.